Now we want to turn our attention to a very important conversation regarding suicide prevention. This after a couple of high-profile deaths have taken place here recently. Martin Short's daughter, Catherine Short, died at the age of 42 just a few weeks ago by suicide. We also saw that it has been confirmed that former Lizzie McGuire star Robert Carradine, he also was confirmed to have died by suicide. So connected to a couple of very high-profile actors there that has started a lot of conversation, not only across the country, but particularly here amongst us at 13 News Now. And so we wanted to bring somebody in to help us navigate through this conversation. And what are some of the things you and your family, your loved ones can talk about? So joining us this morning is Susannah Uroskie with the National Alliance of Mental Illness, or NAMI, to talk about mental health, suicide prevention. Thank you so much, Susannah, for taking some time and talking to us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the time to highlight this.
So in talking through this, right, can we first start with, if you're a loved one and you notice something maybe off with someone else that you love and you're around all the time, are there signs that you can see? Or I've even heard it from people, sometimes you may not even see anything is wrong. What would you tell for loved ones who may be finding themselves in that position?
Well, so there were a couple questions there. Yeah. So what are possible signs? So there can be specific things that they're saying. There can be behaviors. There can be a change in mood. So some signs can be if they're actually expressing a desire to no longer live, saying that there may be a burden to others, that they have no desire to live. The behaviors can range. They can be looking for means to end their life. They can be giving away prized possessions. They can be saying goodbye to people. Where looking back, it can seem obvious. And then with mood, it can be obvious signs of depression, could be anxiety. It could be a change in behavior that could be sleeping more often. So there are numerous signs.
How do you approach the conversation if you see any of those signs and you may suspect that this could potentially be something that is on their minds? How do you start that talk?
Yeah, and that is important to start the talk, because that can be scary for some people to have that conversation. And really what comes to the top of my head right away is asking that question, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of killing yourself? A lot of people think that will then put the thought into your head, when it really does not. Research indicates it does not at all. And it really just lifts a burden off of the person's shoulders, and they can feel seen and heard. So I know it's difficult to have those conversations because I come to this conversation as a representative from NAMI, but I have also lost a loved one to suicide. So I know that those conversations are important to have, because we can't prevent every tragedy, but it is important to be able to recognize warning signs so people can speak up and say, I'm worried about you. Is there something going on? I've noticed that you're sleeping most of the day. Just being present, and you don't always have to have the right words to say, but listening and being there is the most important thing.
I'm so glad you said that, because my follow-up question, if you do ask that question and they say yes, what's the next step?
If they say yes to wanting to hurt themselves, then and that can be alarming for someone to hear. Mm-hmm. It's important for the person who asked the question to remain calm. And then if there are lethal means present, helping to remove those, and then reaching out for the appropriate support. I would, depending on the situation, if it was active with the lethal means right there, I would immediately call 911. Otherwise, I think a great place to start is a resource that we have nationally, 988. You can text, you can chat. It's an amazing resource.
Would you say their approach, by your recommendation, does it change whether or not the person is an adult versus maybe a child, in how you start that conversation and then how you respond based upon what they say?
Yeah, well, I think it all depends.
Yeah.
Is that your child? And having that conversation naturally will look different, how you approach it. Your wording may be different. It may just sound like, I'm really worried about you. Let's get the help that you need. You're not alone. You're not a burden. I love you no matter what's going on. So let's get the help that you need, because they're looking to you as the trusted adult to find those resources. And it can be very scary for families. And so having those conversations are so important because we want to prevent future tragedies.
This is great information, and I'm appreciative of how you are, even in this coaching, us through the process of maybe having those dialogues. You mentioned before that sometimes it's just about being near, being close. Are there any other just actions you would recommend, or just ways in which we might be able to journey with someone through this process?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So, well, I think something you touched on in the beginning was that we don't always know that. I think that's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't always visible.
Yeah.
And so even reaching out to those that we care about and asking them, how are you really doing? That can open the door. And we know our loved ones the best, and being present is everything. And sometimes even offering, if they've never been to therapy, let's use that for example. Would you like? I can drive you there. And then we can go for lunch afterwards. And you don't have to be a mental health professional. I'm not a mental health professional. But being a friend, being a good friend, listening, and just being present, because that sense of community, that sense of support is everything.
How often would you say is maybe appropriate for checking back in with someone? Let's say I'm a friend. I don't live with you every day, but we've had this initial conversation, and I know, based upon what you've confided in me, that this is something that you're experiencing. How often as a friend would you say I should maybe check back in and say, hey, how are you doing, to where it doesn't maybe become burdensome?
Oh, yeah. So I think that depends on what the friend has shared with you. So if you were just sensing something and you've opened the door to a potential conversation, they might not necessarily, be open to having that conversation yet. But I think it depends on your friendship. But there are some people that I check in with that just with a simple heart emoji to say, I'm thinking about you, so they know that I'm there for them if they're ready or need to talk. But if they have confided in you, then I would say daily, depending on the severity of the situation.
And we, mentioned that, and part of our reaching out to you all was because we saw these deaths that obviously have been reported, national outlets, people who quite popular because they're actors, etc.
Yeah.
Is there any research, or in your experience, does that influence or impact anybody who may already be having those thoughts? Or I'm assuming it, at the very least, for those who have loved ones who have died by suicide, it could be a trigger. How do those situations potentially play into the conversation that we're having, if at all?
Yeah, well, exposure to a suicide is a risk factor along with other risk factors. And risk factors don't necessarily mean that someone will try to end their life. But exposure to suicide is one of the risk factors. And as we know, with every death, it affects the person, the family, the community. There's that ripple effect is huge. And so, yes, you always do run that there's a significant concern that there will be others in the community who are vulnerable, who maybe have numerous risk factors, who then see that as, kind of an extra push in the wrong direction.
And, you mentioned, and again, thank you so much. We have Susannah Uroskie here with National Alliance of Mental Illness, or NAMI, here within our area of Hampton Roads. And you mentioned that you too have experienced this in your own family. And the question I want to ask next is, for those who have and are still grieving and going through this process, how do you encourage? How do you support? How do you kind of stand beside and be with people who are going through that, as you've said yourself, you are?
Yeah. Well, another good question. There's so much stigma surrounding mental illness, and especially with suicide. So I personally have experienced all different reactions. Some good friends who couldn't even say a word to me, and then others who were there who were just friends who became so much more. I would say, similar to the answer I gave you on the other question, it depends on your friendship. There really are no words to make the situation better, obviously, but once again, being present and just saying, I'm so sorry that this has happened, and I can't imagine what you're feeling. And depending on that friendship, I'm here for you, for anything. I'm here.
Yeah. I think that's a challenge for so many people who haven't experienced.
Yeah.
How do you, as you said, how can I be present? And how can I be there without feeling like I need to do something at all times? So I think that's important for people to hear from you in that case. And you're here representing NAMI. So what are the resources and the opportunities through your organization that people in our community, or maybe beyond here in Hampton Roads, they might be able to reach out to you for?
Yeah, well, the good news, NAMI is a national organization. So we are the local affiliate that serves this area, but NAMI offers free educational classes, support groups, mental health presentations. That's how we became a part of it. Our daughter was released from the psychiatric hospital with her first manic break when she was 19, and someone advised that we take the family to family educational course, all free resources. And we just learned a wealth of information to help us better support our daughter. So it really is an incredible organization, and I'm proud to represent it.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the other resources as well, the hotline to...
Yeah, 988.
Yes, I mean, and we have it here on our screen there, just in case. Again, it is 988. It is as simple as picking up the phone and making that phone call with those digits there. And we talk about being present. We talk about raising, just asking the question and feeling comfortable about that. Are there any other things that you feel like people need to hear who are watching and listening to this at this moment that could potentially help them maybe save a life, or to maybe help them process what they're going through when it comes to suicide prevention?
Yes, I would say, number one, you're not alone. You're not alone. And because when there is that feeling of hopelessness and despair, you really do feel all alone, and you're the only person experiencing it. So number one, you are not alone. And number two, stay hopeful. And there are resources out there. And just reach out, and we can connect you with those services that can help support you and just help you survive and thrive.
Everybody, we have Susannah Uroskie here, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, or NAMI. Thank you so much for taking time and such an important conversation and the way that you've navigated this with us this morning. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for taking time today.
Thank you for having me.